Welcome back to Dynamos Dozen, folks. The podcast we bring you each and every week. Head out there to YouTube, smash that subscribe and bell notification button, and of course, drop a like on the video if you're enjoying it. This is the pro wrestling podcast we bring you every week. I'm flying solo this week. Ian is otherwise occupied. He will be back next week, no doubt. But we have a full show for you tonight. We're going to do a quick Royal Rumble review. We're going to talk about the latest headlines in pro wrestling, and we're also going to take a look back at the week in pro wrestling history, and of course, round out the show with dropping some notable birthdays. So glad you can join us tonight. Hope you're enjoying the shows. Of course, make sure you let us know in the comments what you think on the topics and stuff that we bring up. And we're going to start with a Royal Rumble review. And we start with the men's Royal Rumble. Not sure what you guys thought about this, but it started out really well, didn't he? What more would we want? Only Gunther and Sheamus to kick off a Royal Rumble, two absolute brutes there, I say, to use the pun, absolutely knocking the living crap out of each other. But then it kind of just drifted along and stuff like that. And, the more it drifted along, the less we were getting sort of surprise entrances and stuff like that. Booker, of course, came out to give us a surprise. And then we were all waiting. Everyone was waiting throughout the Rumble for Cody and all and stuff like that. We had Kofi going out of the ring. We thought he was going to land on that chair and do one of those cool spots that he's now renowned for. Didn't come off. I'm not sure whether it was planned that way or not, but they did reference that his leg was on the chair, which gave you the feeling that both his feet hadn't hit the ground and maybe he might be coming back in, but didn't materialize. Logan Paul came out. What a spot he did with Ricochet. Both boys going nearly coast to coast and taking each other out in the middle of the ring. What a spot that was. Looked absolutely fabulous. But then Cody came out at number 30 and did the business and went on to seal the Royal Rumble. Kind of got the feeling that maybe it was a little bit sort of, dare I say, predictable. I would have liked Cody maybe not necessarily to come out at 30. Hard to sell us the story that, of course, he drew number 30, of course, but he goes on to WrestleMania where he's going to face Roman Reigns for the title, and that should be interesting. He's on this wave at the moment and stuff like that, and it's really, really cool to see him back and stuff like that. And of course, I'm sure maybe him coming out at 30, they wanted to protect him coming back off that pectoral tear, if we remember, looked really, really sore. So that was your men's Royal Rumble. Kind of dare I say, a middle of the road kind of Royal Rumble, you know what I mean? Nothing too majorly crazy in it and stuff like that. Gunther was absolutely fabulous and it nearly went all the way from number one, I think it was, and he was certainly value for money in there and stuff like that. Let's get on then. After that, then we had had we Bray Wyatt after that. Bray Wyatt versus LA Knight in the Pitch Black Mountain Dew match. I don't know what you guys made of this. I didn't really get into it at all. Didn't really do anything for me. I think it's just sad to say. I think it's more of the same with Bray Wyatt. And it's just this time it's LA Knight who's caught up in it, who I think is absolutely excellent. But I just think it's one of those things where it's just, I don't know. I was hoping Bray Wyatt might go off and he might come back in a different kind of guise. He might have reinvented himself and come out as, like, we know he can wrestle and stuff like that. We know he's very talented. We know the lineage there in his family and stuff like that. No, but he comes back and it just seems to be that it's, you know, more and more dressing all the time, and didn't really do a whole lot for me, to be honest. Um, but Wyatt defeated Knight via pinfall. Kind of gave the match a kind of a, I don't know, what would you say, kind of 50-50 kind of thing. Didn't do a lot for me. Raw Women's Championship, Bianca Belair versus Alexa Bliss. This kind of turned out the way I thought it would, and kind of how we predicted in the preview. There's a massive gulf between these two girls, and I'm a fan of both. But then again, you have Alexa getting caught up again in the Uncle Howdy stuff and all that kind of stuff. And I don't know what it is. I'm just not into it. I'm just not into it at all. Belair looked absolutely fabulous and looks a real superstar, as she always does. Her ring work was excellent and stuff like that. But I just think it was just such a gulf there in trying to convince us in any way that this was it was a total mismatch, really, So Bianca running out winner by pinfall and retained the championship. Not unexpected. The Women's Royal Rumble. Of course, we start out Rhea Ripley wearing her wounds after being speared by Beth Phoenix during the Men's Royal Rumble. Through number 1, so she comes out and she's working the ribs and all that kind of stuff. Rhea looks absolutely fabulous at the moment, and I think a lot of people like her because she just looks so different. You know, she looks really, really different. And we're going to get onto something in the news here where comparisons are being made with China and stuff like that, and we'll get her reaction to it and all that kind of stuff. But she went from 1 all the way to win the Rumble. This seemed like a really, really long Rumble. Obviously, Michelle McCool came out. There was some nice little spots in there at times with some of the women's wrestlers. You know, the stuff with Bailey was pretty cool. Becky came out, was pretty cool. But it was like, it was kind of, it just seemed a little bit monotonous. And to be quite frankly, I think it was really the finish that really cemented the match in terms of credibility and stuff like that. I think it was a tough one. There was a lot of people coming out. Obviously, Asuka came out. She looked absolutely sensational, as she always does, and puts in that shift. And obviously had a big part to play as well in the outcome of the match with the Tajiri miss, dare I say, and all that kind of stuff. But again, I just thought it dragged out an awful lot. I thought in those middle parts of the match and stuff like that, as more and more of the women wrestlers came out, it was kind of like a different variation, maybe of the same. You know, a lot of different coloured hair and a lot of different bright ring gear and all that kind of stuff. Raquel Gonzalez came out. She looked absolutely fantastic. Nia Jax, of course, came back and they all dumped her out. I always worry when I see Nia Jax bumping over the rope and stuff like that. It's a model for an accident, isn't it? Really, when you think about it. But again, it was a solid enough one. Certainly, I thought it was better than the men's, and I thought that the outcome, I thought it was better than the men's. I thought it was a better Royal Rumble. I thought there was parts in it were kind of like a tad bit sort of monotonous and stuff like that, but the finish alone was absolutely brilliant, the way the girls laid it out. And then to see Rhea there just chewing on the rope and stuff like that. She's a real superstar now, and really believing in herself as a superstar as well, which is really, really cool to see. So that was the Women's Royal Rumble. And then we got to, some would say, the main event, some would say not. Pretty predictable, I would say, and stuff like that. We knew the Sami Zayn stuff was coming. I would say probably not Kevin Owens' greatest outing against Roman Reigns, and certainly not his greatest outing. It was a little bit kind of all over the place. And then, of course, it ended, of course, Sammy with the chair shot on Roman, and then the beat down came and all that kind of stuff. The two boys were taken out of the ring, and it was interesting to see Jey Uso leaving the ring. You know, simply didn't want to be a part of it and stuff like that. And we'll talk about his Instagram post in the news and stuff like that. But Roman retained. Sammy is out of the bloodline. No honorary use anymore. Which I'm really, really gonna miss. They gave him a proper beatdown, didn't they? Yeah, and it was just, yeah, it just well, let me know what you thought about it. I thought the setting was really good. I thought the way they laid it out was really good. I thought just little bits of it were a little bit sloppy and stuff like that. But I thought it delivered kind of what we expected and stuff like that. But sad to see the end of the honorary use, isn't it? Really, you know. And then we have to figure out what's going to happen now with the Usos and stuff like that. With Jay leaving the ring, and leaving the bloodline there. I'm out. So let's see where that goes. So let's get into the news. That was my review of the Royal Rumble. I had really, really much higher expectations of it. There's kind of mixed views out there about it. Some people thought it was pretty good and stuff like that. I thought parts of it was good, but a lot of it was average. I don't think it delivered on what it could have delivered. Maybe just my expectation was too high and stuff like that. I thought we would have got a lot more comebacks and stuff like that, and would have been down in Texas and all, of course, like would we have got the rattlesnake and stuff like that and all? But unfortunately not. But that's the way it goes. There was talk maybe that the Rock might go in via satellite and all this kind of stuff. I thought Lesnar's elimination was pretty cool, and he had an absolute meltdown and stuff like that. Um, but yeah, other than that, I think there was a number of moments there, but I don't see Royal Rumble 2023 going down hugely in people's memories, with the exception of the loss of the honorary use. Let's get into the news. So some interesting news articles coming out this week. Nikki Bella came out and said she wore the John Cena wedding dress to her wedding to Artem, which was an interesting ploy on that, and kind of a little dig in there, if you like, you know what I mean. So interesting there from Nikki Bella coming out with that. That wound cuts deep, doesn't it? Rhea Ripley, comparisons being made with China, and she spoke about it, and she goes, she thinks it's really, really cool. And she wants people to keep saying it, because obviously, China was, she stood out as well. She was so different as well. And Rhea's so cool and stuff like that. And it's really nice. When I mentioned about the Royal Rumble there earlier, so many of the girls in there at the moment, and the wrestlers in there at the moment, they really, really kind of, it's like they're cut from the same cloth, if you like. So Rhea's so different. You know the way Rhea's so different, Asuka's so different. They bring something different. Everyone else is just a lot of hair and a lot of color and a lot of, you know, crazy ring gear and stuff like that and all. But you can see the layers to the character in Rhea Ripley and in Asuka and stuff like that. So that's why they're so intriguing and interesting. So she said, yeah, it's cool. And she said that Kofi Kingston was saying that she should go for the IC title. Now that would be really cool. Be interesting to see how that happens. The Royal Rumble also smashed the all-time gate and viewer records for WWE, as well as the most watched and attended Royal Rumble in the history of the company, which is pretty cool in 2023. Kind of didn't really feel like it either. I mean, the crowd were a little bit sort of. When you think about the Royal Rumble matches, people kept on coming out and stuff like that. The crowd were quite quiet, you know what I mean? They had dampened down a lot, but no doubt they were there in their numbers. I think the number that they put out there was 51,000 or 51,000 all. I think we had said that it holds about 60. I'm not too sure what the layout, how that changed it and stuff like that. But it was, I think the official numbers was just over 51,000 or something like that. So big attendance for a Royal Rumble, yeah, certainly, yeah, smashed the record, which is pretty cool. Um, and Rhea Ripley, of course, making history at the Royal Rumble this year, which is an interesting one, becoming the first woman to enter the bout as the first entrance and win the entire match. She also earned the Iron Woman record after spending over an hour in the ring. But fans noticed that she had hurt her knee again. But it all seems okay as far as I know. And she confirmed it herself later on that, yeah, she had hurt her knee, because you seen in parts of the match and stuff like that, she sort of just drifted over a little bit and then came back in. But the girl did a wonderful job and stuff like that, and fair play to her. And she's going on to WrestleMania now to wrestle for the title, which is going to be super cool. And I hope they follow it all the way through. Pretty cool. Kevin Nash commented this week on not being at the Raw 30-year anniversary, and I think he came out. He says, he basically said, "I really don't want people that I don't know coming up to me and saying I'm sorry to hear about your son," and that's fair enough. I'm sure he wants, I'm sure that's still very raw and still very fresh for Kevin and stuff like that. Such a sad loss and stuff like that. But yeah, I think he just, he probably just needs that time. He doesn't want to be like, walking around backstage and every person coming up to him, and it's just that could get pretty tiring and stuff like that. And I know people just mean it in good jest, and they mean it like, they just expressing their condolences and stuff like that. But it could probably get too much in that environment, maybe. So yeah, but it was good to hear. It was good to hear why he wasn't there, that it wasn't something else or anything like that. So that's pretty cool. We always wish Kevin always the best and stuff like that. The Elimination Chamber main event is set by the looks of things. As reported, it looks like it's going to be Roman Reigns versus the ex-honorary Uce, Sami Zayn. So that's going to be an interesting one to see how that one fares out. really am going to miss the honour use, aren't I? This is something that we've been clutching to for the last number of months. It's been absolutely sensational, and they've done a great job on it. And it's a shame now that it's over. Cody posted a pic on Instagram as well of the Winged Eagle title. Is that a sign that maybe the old Winged Eagle title might be coming back? I think that'd be pretty cool if we got a version of the Winged Eagle coming back. Assuming they don't butcher it in any way or something like that, because we know we don't want those titles that are revered messed around with it anyway. The Winged Eagle, the Attitude Belt, the Big Gold, all those kind of things. We don't like them messed with. But it'd be pretty cool if it was brought back and it'd be something different, obviously. Um, and of course, in a post on Instagram on his account, Jey Uso confirmed that he is out of the bloodline. Jey simply wrote, "I'm out," with a red teardrop and an image of him in the ring just before he left the ring after the rest of the bloodline brutally beat down Sami Zayn. Which is an interesting one. And Pat McAfee returned at the Rumble, which was really, really cool. This guy is on point all the time, and I like that dynamic between himself, Corey Graves, and of course Michael Cole in the middle of it all. But it was a shock to everyone, apparently. Well, nearly everyone, including people on the production team. PW Insider reported that McAfee's return was kept very close to the vest to prevent the news of his return from leaking out. So that's interesting. Great to have Pat McAfee back. Certainly he was sensational before he went. And if anyone's seen, I was at WrestleMania in Dallas last year. He was sensational. But yeah, great to have Pat McAfee back. Let's run through some of the week in pro wrestling history. There's some interesting ones here tonight. And we're going back a number of years here. 1986 is in there, 1973 is in there. So there's some interesting ones. Some sad ones as well, I have to mention before we go through it. As always, the week after a pay-per-view doesn't tend to bring a huge amount of news, generally, especially in the history of wrestling. So we go through it. 1999, Japanese wrestling legend Giant Baba died at the age of 61 in Tokyo after a bout with cancer. R.I.P. Giant Baba. 2015 at the SSE Wembley Arena in London, England, Kurt Angle made Bobby Lashley tap out to win the TNA World Heavyweight Championship. Kind of a significant one there. We know from being on tour, both WWE, TNA, and various other promotions, they don't tend to switch titles or drop titles during these shows and stuff like that. So this was pretty cool that it happened there. 1963, we're going back to NWA World Heavyweight Champion Lou Tez defeated Killer Kowalski in Houston, Texas, not too far away from the Rumble. Before the match, Kowalski was recognized as the NWA champion in Texas, but not by the NWA and not anywhere else in the world. This is because Kowalski had defeated then champion Buddy Rogers in a 3-fall match in November, but only one fall had taken place as Rogers broke his ankle. So the NWA didn't recognize him except in Texas. So interesting, when you think about kayfabe and all that kind of stuff, this is how strong. Imagine how strong the National Wrestling Alliance was back then. When you see this. 1993, on Monday Night Raw, the narcissist Lex Luger made his in-ring debut for the WWE, beating Jason Knight in less than 3 minutes. Lex Luger had the benefit of meeting Lex Luger at WrestleCon last year in Dallas. Not too much I want to say on that, just the guy was fairly frail and stuff like that, but great to meet him and stuff like that. He was one that I would have followed back in the 80s as he went through the Horseman period and tagging with Barry Windham as the total package and all that stuff. Great to meet him. 2010, territory wrestling legend Jack Briscoe died at the age of 68 due to complications suffered during open heart surgery. Jack Briscoe. And in 1986, I think if you've watched any WCCW or you've watched anything to do with the Von Erichs and stuff like that, you'll recognize this man. But 1986, Gino Hernandez died as a result of a drug overdose at the age of just 28. I think it's covered in, what was the documentary's name again? It's the one that heavily featured Kevin and stuff like that. The Von Erichs, I think it was. It had a different name to it, but it's out there and it was featured in that. But R.I.P. Gino Hernandez. 2008, Brock Lesnar made his UFC debut against Frank Mir. How could we forget? and would tap out when Mir locked a knee bar submission on him in just 90 seconds. We remember it well, but we do know that he came back and absolutely smashed Frank Mir to bits. And we had such high hopes from going in and stuff like that. And the real fear was obviously the level of Frank Mir's jiu-jitsu and stuff like that was a real concern. The minute he locked on that, Lesnar knew he tapped as quick as he could, because he knew that like Mir would take your leg home with him, that kind of way. 1973, All Japan Pro Wrestling joined the National Wrestling Alliance, meaning that NWA wrestlers such as Ric Flair, Harley Race, and Dory Funk Jr. There's 3 names, would appear on AJPW shows and defend their titles. What an alliance that was to get those guys over there, and how those guys forged their names and their legacy through Japanese wrestling as well. A huge part of these guys' careers. 2006, Axel Rotten was found dead in the bathroom of a McDonald's restaurant in Maryland at the age of 44. What a horrible way to go, to be found in a bathroom of a McDonald's. Very, very sad. We rounded out with that one. Not much on the wrestling history right after a pay-per-view, but we will be back next week with a much bigger list and a much broader list and stuff like that. We'll finish out the show tonight with some notable birthdays. And no doubt I had to put this one in. I'll give away the year 1987. One Becky Lynch. Absolutely playing a blinder in the world of wrestling at the moment. Also a guy that I really like and stuff like that. Drake Maverick, 1983. Giant Gonzalez, 1966. Brian Crush Adams, 1963. Very, very sad. He was an exceptional guy and stuff like that. I've spoken on the podcast about him a number of times, and also had a conversation with Adam Baum about him, Brian, as well. We've spoken about him. 1958, Dave Fifth Finley. 1988, Ronda Rousey, the baddest woman on the planet. One half of the Rockers, 1960, Marty Jannetty. And a guy that I'm a big fan of, 1982, one half of the Motor City Machine Guns, Chris Sabin. Super list of birthdays there this week. Becky Lynch, Drake Maverick, Giant Gonzalez, Brian Crush Adams, Dave Fifth Finley, Ronda Rousey, Marty Jannetty, and rounded out with Chris Sabin. There are notable birthdays for this week. That has been your show and your catch up on pro wrestling, your review of the Royal Rumble. Let me know in the comments what you thought. Have a look back at some of that stuff in history. Of course, we do this history section, so it might get your juices flowing in terms of looking back at the history, maybe going back looking at some of those matches. Gino Hernandez was a heck of a wrestler. But definitely worth going back and looking at, especially a lot of that Texas stuff back in the day was absolutely classic stuff. And of course, you could do a lot worse than look up the likes of Ric Flair, Harley Race, and Dory Funk Jr. applying their trade in Japan. We will be back next week. Ian will join me again next week. We will have another fulfilled, fantastic show. Until next time, like on the video, subscribe on the channel, Dynamos doesn't. Hit the bell notification as well so you're notified when we put new content up. Let us know in the comments what you think. You'll find us out there. You can email us, dynamosdozen@gmail.com. You'll get us on Twitter as well, @dynamosdozen. And you'll find us wherever all your good podcasts come from. Until next week, I have been Niall Hogan, your host, and we will talk to you again real soon.